So I'm going to, in this video, give a review of the Destiny 2 beta, as well as I'll also talk about what I think the best combinations of weapons for long range, close range, and medium range is. First off, I'll start with the weapons. So I think the best weapons for a long range are scout rifle as your primary or energy. It doesn't really matter which you decide to use, whether primary or energy. Like I said, it does about the same amount of damage, so you basically just choose that one. What you want as your second primary / energy weapon is a pulse rifle. It's pretty good for range. Hand cannon's better at medium range, so you could do a hand cannon as your secondary for the long range build, but pulse rifles can get more range out of them without getting as much drop off. Excuse me. Plus, it's also easier to see through pulse rifle sights. It gets a bit difficult sometimes to see things farther out through a hand cannon sight. And of course, the power weapon is obviously got to be a sniper for the long range. It just makes the most sense. A rocket launcher could also work, but you know, you don't get as much ammo with the rocket launchers, so it's not as good of a choice for that. And next up, medium range. Now, I think the best loadout for medium range is if you use a pulse rifle as your primary or secondary, and I mean, not primary or secondary, but your primary or energy. And then the hand cannon as your other primary / energy weapon. And like I said, it doesn't matter which one goes in which slot, because regardless of it being primary or energy, it does about the same amount of damage. Obviously, the only benefit to energy being if it has the same color shield, it you know, gets rid of that shield quicker, just like in Destiny 1. Although, interestingly enough, as we know, whatever energy weapon it is, it doesn't matter whether it's arc, solar, or void, it does more damage to supers in the Crucible, so it's pretty good. So hand cannon, definitely great for that, because hand cannons can deal high amounts of damage. And considering energy variant weapons will do more damage on someone with a super, and hand cannons already do high damage, that's just real good at getting rid of them. And best power weapon I'd say for medium range build is probably the grenade launcher fusion rifle. The grenade launcher, of course, it's sort of like rocket launcher in the case where it doesn't get as much ammo. Although I believe the grenade launcher can get around the same amount of ammo as a fusion rifle can, so it's actually not too bad. And of course, close range, just a final, like the final, what's it called? Oh, I forgot what the word is. Optimized, yes, the final optimized build of like weapon, basically. So pretty much when it comes to close range, the best primary / energy is probably going to be your auto rifle. Although you can actually have a primary like submachine gun. It doesn't have to be energy, which I find that a bit interesting. Pistols, if they also go in your primary / energy slot, but pistols they're actually better for close or mid-range, so you could do that in either the mid-range or close range build actually when it comes to pistols. Pretty good. They're pretty good. Yeah. But as I was saying, auto rifle is definitely, you want one of those in one of your slots. While you don't have to, I find that's just one of the best ones for the close range. And your secondary, not secondary, energy or primary, because like I said, it doesn't really matter which one, they both do the same amount of damage. Pistol, submachine gun, one of those two pretty much. That's the best bet when it comes to close quarters pretty much. Of course, if you wanted, you could just run with 2 auto rifles or 2 pistols. You can literally run with 2 of any of the, I believe there's 6 different types of weapons that can go in the primary energy shot slot. So yeah, you can have 2 of any of those if you want. I'm just saying what I think is probably the best. And of course, this comes as no surprise to anyone, but for close range, the best power weapon is obviously going to be the shotgun. Now, rocket launcher is also pretty good, but, you know, like I said, rocket launchers get significantly less ammo in comparison to the others. So, yeah. Although, I mean, they do have quite a bit of power. Although at this point in time I haven't gotten the opportunity to use any rocket launchers in the beta. I have gotten the opportunity to use a linear fusion rifle. It's basically just feels like a sniper, of course. Like a Queen Breaker's bow, pretty much. I think the linear fusion rifles are actually a little bit better than snipers though. Because with an actual sniper, if you shoot and the enemy moves before the bullet gets to them, then you of course didn't hit them. But with linear fusion rifle, you can stop charging it. You can stop charging it at the last second before it shoots out, and then you can correct your shot essentially, which is really good, especially in Crucible. Although from what we've seen, the maps seem to be a lot more close quarters, like they got a lot more routes and flanking and things. So I'm not entirely certain of how good it might actually be in Crucible. We'd have to see with more of the maps. Although then again, I suppose with the IGN first look, we did see that that map that takes place at the Iron Temple area, and that one had some long sight lines, so I guess it really depends. And of course you could go with suboptimal builds when it comes to weapons, basically. Like you could run with a scout rifle, a pistol, and a shotgun, and that covers pretty much all ranges. Your scout rifle can get your long range, your pistol can get your mid range, and your shotgun of course covers close quarters. But that's a good suboptimal, because the pistol can cover both close quarters and mid range. Whereas if you had just put a pulse rifle there when you're out of shotgun ammo, you're not as good in close range, because you probably want to back up more in close range with the pulse rifle. Depending on the archetype, they can be good at close range, of course. Your higher fire rate weapons are obviously significantly better at close range than your slower ones. But some weapons in general, regardless of archetype, are just better in certain situations and positions. But that's about it for for what I think is probably the best combinations of weapons to use. Now I'd like to get to that review I was talking about. So Destiny 2, from what we've seen in the beta, the gameplay feels a lot similar to Destiny 1, as you'd expect. Except, as I'm sure you've heard from like YouTubers like Datto and More Console. Well, I don't think More Console's mentioned it or said anything about it. Well, I mean, I think he's mentioned it, just not in the same way as Datto, but the game's a lot slower, and I mean Crucible goes faster, of course, because they shorten the Crucible, but the game goes a lot slower because they've reduced the amount of damage that weapons do, of course. So it just takes longer to shoot the enemies than it would in Destiny 1, even though you're at the same supposed like level that you should be, for instance, for Destiny 1, where you'd pretty much just kill the targets pretty easily. You still kill them rather easily, it's just it feels like it takes more bullets than it would have in Destiny 1, of course. So it pretty much just makes it take longer, of course.
1 minute left.
And one thing that I'm very glad about that they've done is the armor system, like how you can boost your recovery and mobility and resilience via armor, rather than it not just being your subclass thing. Because in Destiny 1, it felt like they were trying to force on you what a hunter, a titan, and warlock should be. Like, regardless of what you did, the hunter's agility, no matter what options you chose, the agility was always going to be the highest bar. Even if you went for a recovery or resilience build, agility was still higher than everything else. Whereas in this game, you can basically get armor and have 0 agility and have like max resistance as a hunter. I mean, resilience as a hunter if you wanted. Or have a lot of recovery and a little bit of agility as a hunter, or have. Yeah, well, you get the idea. So like you're not as forced to have certain armor. Whereas they streamlined supers, they made like basically you can't expect a hunter to go down easier than everyone else now, because that, you know, you can have a hunter that decided that they want to have a lot of armor.
30 seconds remaining.
Of course they'll be slower for, you know, getting more armor, because that's the trade-off. You have more armor, you get slower, you get less of the mobility. And if you try to go like full on one thing, you might end up with 0 or very little of the other things. But yeah, I really like that they've taken basically the limiters off of your recovery and all that. Now I can have a recovery build as a hunter and not have to worry about Titan recovery build being better, actually. Because like I did some messing around in Destiny 1. Like, I usually went with a recovery build, and what made no sense to me is like the main, like I was saying, the main stat of a class, no matter what you did, that would always be the highest bar by a little bit compared to everything else. Like, if you did a resilience build, or I think they called it toughness or something like that in Destiny 1. If you did a build, no, they called it armor actually. If you did an armor build with a hunter in Destiny 1, I believe your agility would still be higher than your armor by a little bit. If you did a recovery build, your agility would still be higher than your recovery. But here's where it gets weird. If you did a recovery build on a Titan and you compare how high their recovery gets compared to a hunter, the Titan would have more recovery than the hunter gets. At that maximum possible recovery, the Titan gets more than the hunter. And even with their armor bar at the lowest possible it can be. The hunter doesn't even reach the lowest. But yeah, the hunter didn't even reach the lowest possible armor when it came to that. So you were just forced to pretty much play your role more so in Destiny 1 than you are in Destiny 2. And they also, of course, streamlined the experience with there's literally only 2 choices of super. But they did a really good job with Voidwalker. The second tree is gonna be really good. Essentially, if you didn't read the second tree of Voidwalker, essentially it'll allow you to sacrifice your grenade to start healing instantly, which will give you the Devour effect, which, like I said, it starts regeneration and makes your health go up to full as long as it's not interrupted by you getting damaged or something. But you can sacrifice your grenade to do that, essentially. But if you get a kill with the melee, then I believe it actually will charge toward your grenade as well, so you can get your grenade back. So you sacrifice your grenade to get health, essentially. And while the Devour effect is active, every kill also starts regeneration, so it's going to be really good. So all in all, I think it's feeling real good. They made a lot of improvements compared to Destiny 1. Happy with where they're going. That's all I'm gonna say for this one. So see ya.